Hey guys, so today I want to talk about rules for artists. With the caveat that these are rules for artists in the times that I know today. Western philosophy calls it postmodernism. I think Eastern philosophy, at least in Buddhism, sometimes call it the latter day of the law, whatever you want. But anyway, so here are some rules for artists. Let's see. Well, how do we get this? I guess the first thing that I'll say is that if they really, really, really like what you're doing something wrong. And I know that, that sounds like the antithesis of everything, and that's the point. Because, there's this philosophical, joke that this philosopher was up on, in front of a bar or something, or in front of the people, and he was giving his ideas, and he did this semi-regularly, and every time he spoke, every time he made a new idea, everyone booed him. Boo! And they were used to, oh, here he comes again, and they would listen to him, and they'd slap each other, boo! Anyway, so one day, as it so happened, he was off doing this, and he happened to say something, and people agreed. People started, yeah, right on. And they started clapping, and some of them started laughing. Yeah, bro, yeah, that's right, yeah. And it was like, and he was just shocked, and he said, everyone's agreeing with me that I just say something stupid? And so that's what I'm trying to say is that, if they're like putting your face up on billboards all across the country, you're doing something wrong. I'm just sorry, you're doing something wrong. Anyway, that's rule number one. Okay, so if they really like you, you're doing something wrong. Okay. And there's historical backup for that too. The really, really, real artists who actually put out new ideas, new forms of expression, most of the time. Sometimes it's not. It's very weird, but there's a rule of thumb. And that comes to the next thing. You just don't. If it's all about presenting your unique view of the world, there is no right or wrong. And popularity is just popularity, and merit, well, we don't know what merit is, so as I believe, it was T.S. Eliot, I think, said all you can do is the work. So there you have that. Now, I also want to let you know that whatever you think you create as an artist isn't necessarily what other people are going to see. In fact, some philosophers actually will go so far as to say that the artist is the last person to know what they've created, because they're too involved in it. See, they're doing it, okay? So the artist is sort of like the clueless fool used by God to do something else. And that's just something to keep in mind as you're doing your thing. And let's see, that's not a bad thing. The muse, the most exhilarating moments of our life are often in the flight of something, the agency of something, in some ways, known or unknown, felt or unfelt. But, that's still something to keep in mind. And another one, this is very practical. I learned this is not my own, I learned this from another artist who put out like 10 rules for the artist, and I didn't really see any of his art. I just saw these rules. He looked like a very preppy, successful person. The rules made sense to me, and I felt they had merit. And one of those rules was never enter anything you do into a contest. If you create a piece of art, do not enter it into a contest. And I can't tell you how many times, how Eminem got his thing entering a contest. That's how he was discovered. And some of us like contests, but you have to admit that on principle, putting, taking something you put your heart and soul into it and sending it to, like, these strangers who are going to, gauge it on base, like, the exposure level compared to the other exposures, and whether the posture was using proper Greco-Roman techniques or Renaissance techniques, and etc., or whether, it's what's considered acceptable in mainstream magazines today, or whether this is really a fashion photo as opposed to a portrait. That's not the point of your work. Or take it like this, okay? So Leonardo da Vinci paints the Last Supper, and then he enters it into a contest sponsored by Nike. You see, there's certain things that just doesn't work like that, okay? And it depends on what you want to be. If you want to be a tool of the money-making establishment, then by all means, enter your, painting of the Last Supper into, the context with Nike. Or maybe go with their competitors, with Reebok. But I'm just trying to say that if you're going to say there's any merit to art at all, and art isn't just a tool, the vehicle you've chosen to social success as compared to being a lawyer or an athlete or something, you're actually there for the art as compared to, for just, becoming, this is what my vehicle, and as opposed to being an accountant, I'll be an artist, then that's the metaphysical truth, the phenomenological truth of being an artist, is that you're always going to be expressing things that no one else can see. The listening to whispers is the way to write a song, Harry Chapin. But when you get the microphones, the music can go wrong. That's also Harry Chapin. So what I'm trying to say is that, and that's the next one. This is what I call the Harry Potter rule. Think of them as muggles. After all, they have nothing but disrespect for you. And I'm not saying that, we should engage in labels, but it helps if you think of people who aren't artists as muggles. Muggles, for those who don't know, in the Harry Potter series, muggles is the term reserved for those people who cannot do magic. And it's just like, well, that seems very judgmental of you. But, I can't tell you how many times I've been judged for saying I was an artist. And there must be something that makes me do it as opposed to all the other, obviously, more artificial things I could do. So, and I can't tell you how many times that you'll hear them say, follow your dream, follow your love, don't take no for an answer. But those same people aren't going to give you a handout when you're starving, okay? They'll be telling you to follow your dream while they're having a piece of pie. It's just like, yeah, that's the way it is. I have someone I care about very deeply who's been in my life since almost as long as I can remember, and his pet peeve is his actual son who wants to be a drummer, and he's been trying to drum for 10 years, and dad's still paying his rent, still paying his phone. And that gosh darn stubborn mule of a son just won't quit as I dream of being a drummer. Shucks. I just don't know. What are the youth coming to today? And it's not even that. It's just the fathers, who, by the way, sacrificed, a career as a police officer to become a hairstylist, and they took all the flack from that in a culture which is dominated by machismo. Still can't quite get his head around why his son keeps wanting to be a drummer. And that's what I mean again. When you're affirmed, you think you're right, and when you're not affirmed, you think you're wrong. When you see people who have things you want, you think they're better than you because you don't have those things, and they think they're better than you because you want for those things and they have them. But the truth is that doesn't mean nothing, all right? You see, I would rather have something that I created, because if it was something I created, it's mine. There's no one's going to be fucking or dicking around with that. No one's going to say that was really so-and-so's. Almost everything I've done, you're always going to know I did it. No one's ever going to come and say, oh, I wish that my, because no one even wants to look like my stuff, all right? Because it's mine, all right? And, if you're going to do that, then it just puts you in this place where, you're going to have to accept that, then this brings us to the next rule, is that there are no friends and there are no companions. When you're actually out here doing this, like, oh God, what's his name? C.S. Lewis, who did the Cthulhu series, the author who redefined the horror genre, He wrote the most horrific horror stories. I mean, he makes Stephen King look like a kindergartner, all right? He changed genre, all right? They're still talking about shit he did. But, he died because, he had problems getting popularizing himself because he wrote these horror stories and was sort of shy and was sort of oafish looking, and he had an inheritance which slowly dwindled despite his meager living, and they say it was his fault because he couldn't really, promote himself that well. So that's what I'm sort of saying. I mean, when you're really an artist, it's like you're in a profession that's more dangerous than any other profession on the world. In human existence, it's the most dangerous profession there is. There is nothing more dangerous. Have you ever looked at the mortality rate amongst artists? How many people can I tick off who died innocently or uninnocently? Buddy Holly. Look at the Beatles. Look at let's just go on and on. James Dean, Harry Chapin, Phil Oakes. It's just Chet, the lead singer of Linkin Park, Kurt Cobain, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin. We could just go on and on. It just seems like, the guy who played the Joker in Batman, a seminal role as the Joker, the guy who played Superman in the original Superman series. They just die like flies, okay? If they didn't commit suicide, they died from a drug overdose. If they didn't die from a drug overdose, they died in a transportation accident getting to a gig, If they didn't die from that, someone shot them out of the blue for no reason. Have you ever really thought about this, enormous mortality rate on the part of the artists? For such a small group, the mortality rate is staggering, all right? It's dangerous as fuck to be an artist. All right, and that's not even counting the ones who don't get discovered. Elvis Presley, dead. Marilyn Monroe, dead. Met the Beatles, dead. Okay, they're all dead. Okay, every one of them. If they're not dead, they're miserable, or they have nervous breakdowns, or they're in some fucking clinic somewhere. They just die in droves. Like, put them in a firing squad. Okay, the artists just go, man, like pedals in the wind, driving their, cars off cliffs because they've been rejected by Hollywood. Do you know that Steven Spielberg, who basically, crafted the fantasies of every adolescent male of the baby boomer generation, they don't even use him anymore because he's too expensive. So he should just work for nothing. Harlan Ellison? Well, someone told him he should write for credit. This is the author of The Terminator. They didn't just write this. We're not talking the 9 sequels. He came up with the idea. He came up with that iconic idea himself. Because he was crazy like that. Because he was an artist. And that's what I mean, man. Being an artist is fucking dangerous. And don't you forget it. They fill you with pie in the sky dreams, and oh, you can be this, and oh, you can be that. It's a death sentence. They want to kill you. They want to take your soul. They want to rape you in the ass. They want to fuck you in the eyeball. Okay, so when you're an artist, you really have signed up for something really pretty cool. Those airborne rangers? Well, airborne rangers, they have a concrete enemy to fight, and they have a whole world telling them to go fight it. You're just out here jacking off in the wind when you're an artist.